recently I came across a New Yorker cartoon that I thought was hilarious too, and it speaks to what we're experiencing in today's society. And it's got this couple, and they're obviously separating here. One's on the couch and one's on the other end of the room talking to their child. And the guy says, "We're separating because I want what's best for the country and your mother does not." And that's kind of where we are in this country. We're so divided. And how many people think that we're really divided in this country at this point? More than we should be, yes? How many people think our civil discourse is helping things? It's not working, is it? We got to try something different. Well, I'm here to tell you that I believe what we're seeing before our very eyes is an erosion in what I call our civic infrastructure. Now, what do I mean by civic infrastructure? Primarily four things. Number one, our knowledge of our system of self-governance. Number two, having an informed and involved electorate. Number three, civic clubs such as yours. I would argue that civic clubs are the actual physical infrastructure of our civic infrastructure. And number four is a spirit of civility and brotherhood that I think we've lost. That's kind of our spiritual infrastructure. So let's inspect for a moment the four areas of our civic infrastructure. First, the knowledge of our system. A few years ago, it came out that high school students in America in civics and U.S. history are completely deficient. Anywhere from 20 to 25% of American high schoolers are proficient in civics and history. Now, adults don't have much to brag about. In a civics test administered to the general public, 71% failed. 71%. Now, in a recent poll coming out just in the past week or two, we found out that 37% of Americans cannot name even one of the 5 freedoms in our First Amendment. Not one. 33% couldn't name any of our 3 branches of government. Only 26% could name all 3 branches. So basically what we're talking about here is 2/3 to 3/4 of the American population not knowing how this thing works, not knowing what's under the hood that drives this country. I would submit to you that what I've just described is a national security crisis, and it's one of our own making. We've got to do something about it, in my view. So, what happened? I went to a Catholic grade school in Kansas City, and I can tell you that this society started going downhill after 2 things happened. After nuns started disappearing, and after we got right turn on red. Those are the 2 things that really brought this society down. But beyond that, we saw a number of things happen in the 1960s that really started eroding our civic infrastructure. Number one, TV and air conditioning drove us inside. Now, I'm not going to give up my TV or my cable, but we need to understand the deleterious effects of what we've glommed onto here. Also, I mean, it was just a tumultuous decade to begin with. With the Vietnam War, and we got a wonderful series on the Vietnam War airing right now on PBS. We had those awful assassinations. We had so many things going on. We had the struggle for civil rights, which was a good thing, but it was all obviously very tumultuous for us. At the same time, we had a number of trends coming together that also started eroding our civic infrastructure. You know, the World War II generation came back, and they joined groups such as the American Legion, Rotary, Lions, AMBUCS. And my generation, the baby boom generation, took things in a different direction. More and more over the decades, we started joining organizations that give us stuff or make discounts available to us, rather than doing service to others. So that's kind of a bad trend if you talk about our civic infrastructure. In addition, government programs have ramped up since the 1960s, and whether you like them or not, they have replaced a lot of what we had to do in our own lives and in civil infrastructure ourselves. So that has contributed to things. Another thing may be the schools. Now, I will grant you that many of us in this room, myself included, probably got a pretty romanticized vision of America in our grade schools, especially when we were growing up. We have swung so far to the other direction, though, that in many cases, it looks as though we are presenting only the warts of America. And we're not really instilling the greatness of America in our school children. A couple years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to a great number of 8th graders. And I mentioned American exceptionalism to them and what I thought it meant. And I saw a lot of kind of glass eyes and blank stares. And one of the teachers told me afterwards that they had never really heard that term, American exceptionalism, before. We also had a leader not too long ago asked by a foreign journalist about American exceptionalism, say, yes, I think America is exceptional, just like Brits think Britain is exceptional and France and so forth and so on. That to me was a real red flag of not understanding what American exceptionalism is all about. It's not pride. Anybody in the world can have pride about their country. By the very definition of the term, exceptionalism has to be the exception. We're not special when we're born here. There's nothing in our DNA that makes America special. What makes it exceptional is our system of self-governance, our Constitution, our values, the civic infrastructure that I've been talking about. That's what makes America special. That's what makes us exceptional. And we're losing touch of it. This is not about us. This is about our country. This is about our future and our children. We've got to get a hold of ourselves. So, a few years ago, I was concerned about the country, and I started writing down things that everybody could do to help. Just a list of things that kind of everyday civics. And I put it in this booklet that I call What You Can Do for Your Country. And it's been a really special experience for me. Our newspaper in Lubbock, Texas, a few years ago promoted this every Sunday for a year. And we had this little booklet for sale. So every week, I get a letter, 10 letters, 20 letters in the mail, seeking this booklet from people in the Lubbock, Texas area, looking for hope about this country and hoping to find it in my modest little booklet here. That was a real humbling experience. But it also told me that people are really searching for hope for this country. And I introduced Heather Martin to you, my business partner. We were talking earlier, you can't just say partner anymore because they assume there's monkey business as well as business. And Heather and I got together to talk about this book of what you can do for your country. And we decided it wasn't enough to just throw this out there. We need to do something more. So we have created an LLC called You Rule. You Rule. Y-O-U-R-U-L-E. Because in a self-governed country, we need to remind ourselves we're the rulers. There's no prince, potentate, king, despot, tyrant to tell us what to do. We're in charge. And we can't neglect our duties. We a lot of times know our rights pretty well, but we don't think about our responsibilities so much. So we created You Rule, which is going to be a web-based company. to promote civics, citizenship, civility, the Constitution, and character. The 5 C's that really hold this thing together. That's the glue of America, and we've got to reinforce it. We want to inspire a national dialogue about this, about civility, if nothing else. Civility may be the #1 problem in America. If we can't talk with each other, how are we going to solve our problems? We've got to get back to a place where we treat each other with respect and even love. And I think there are 5 places we can push that. #1 in the schools, #2 in the churches, #3 in businesses. And I say that because incivility costs businesses money. Look it up. It costs people money when you've got an incivil workplace. And I also think that we can get in there using a United Way model to have civics and civility rallies at local businesses. We've got to do those things to bring it back. The other 2 fronts on this war, I think, and this is not going to be a surprise to you, is our politicians and our media. We can't keep seeing our leaders on our TV stations going at each other's throats over everything. We have got to impress upon our leaders in politics and in the media the dire importance of becoming civil again. It's a national security issue. We want to coalesce a movement out there for civility and civics. It's already there, but there's so many disparate parts. At URule, we want to bring those together. We want to be a link. We want to be a connector for all of those people to get together and really grow this movement. I'd love to take some of your questions, but I want to leave you with this. This is an exhortation from the Revolutionary War era patriot named Joseph Warren, who told his colleagues during the Revolutionary War, "On you depend the fortunes of America. You are to decide the important question on which rest the happiness and liberty of millions yet unborn. Act worthy of yourselves." We need to act worthy of ourselves. Thank you very much.